Tēnā koutou katoa and welcome to this event. This is the 2012 final of the 3-minute thesis competition, or 3MT as we call it. This is the 4th year that we've run this event, and I trust it will be as informative and entertaining as usual. I'm Rachel Spronkin-Smith, the Acting Director of Graduate Research Services, and we oversee this event. A special welcome to our local schools. They will be instrumental in determining the school's prize to the presenter that they think is the best. And because we have our schools here, just a little word of background really on what it is that these students are doing in terms of a thesis. When you embark on university study, you generally start off in a 3-year bachelor's degree. Some people may opt to do an extra year, an honours year, and following that could be a 2-year master's thesis, which has 1 year of coursework and 1 thesis year where people undertake research on a topic of interest. Now, if you get through all that, you can then go on to a doctorate or PhD. So people can go there from either an honours or a master's degree. The PhD is 3 years of full-time study where students are following a research that they're truly passionate about, we hope, and then after that they come out with a doctorate or a PhD. When you do that, you get to wear a fancy gown like this one. So mine came from the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. This year we've had many entrants across the divisions in the university, and today we're going to hear from 9 finalists. We had hoped there would be a 10th one, but unfortunately due to illness she had to pull out. A big thanks to Office Max for their generous sponsorship, and this is the 4th year running that Office Max have sponsored us. And towards the end of the session today, we'll be getting the 2 representatives there, David Bennett, the Key Account Manager, and Murdo Ross, the Account Manager, to help present prizes. Now, to the rules of the competition. Each presenter has 3 minutes to speak, and they're only allowed 1 static slide. The presentation should be engaging and pitched at the level of an intelligent layperson. It should describe the research, but also communicate the enthusiasm and the significance of the work. And judging this today, we have our panel of judges up here, and I'd like to just introduce them in turn. First, we have our Chief Judge, Professor Richard Blakey. Richard is our Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Research and Enterprise, so he has oversight of research at Otago. He's a graduate of Otago. He did an honours degree in science and then went to Cambridge and did his doctorate there. His research field is applied electromagnetics. His principal interests are the development of low-cost nanoscale imaging using near-field light and other sub-wavelength optical phenomena. For something lighter and perhaps more easily understood, it's rumoured that Richard is a master of the Rubik's Cube. So he can think fast, which is a necessary skill for a 3MT judge. Our second judge is Associate Professor Janine Hayward. Janine? She is in the Department of Politics. She did a Bachelor of Arts honours degree at Canterbury and a PhD at Victoria University in Wellington. She's an expert in constitutional politics and the media, so maybe she understands sound bites. And we gather that with her netballing prowess, she's definitely up for a good competition. Finally, we have Dr. Michael Steadman. Michael is our first ever guest judge from outside the university. He has an University of Otago honorary degree of the Doctor of Laws to recognise his outstanding contribution to film and media in New Zealand. He's Managing Director of the Natural History New Zealand. This is the largest producer of wildlife films in the Southern Hemisphere. So we're very fortunate to have him here today, and he knows all about the importance of communicating science and research in a compelling fashion. What are the judges going to be looking for? Well, a few criteria that we need to keep in mind. They're going to look for communication style. Was the thesis topic and its significance communicated in a language appropriate to an intelligent but non-specific audience? Secondly, comprehension. Did the presentation help the audience understand the research? And thirdly, engagement. Did the presentation make the audience want to know more? Now, a few other people to introduce. Firstly, and most importantly, is actually Susan Craig here. She has the job of timekeeping. This is a very important role. She will start the timing when the presenter starts speaking and will hold up a sign indicating when there are 30 seconds left. So take note, our presenters. She will hold up another sign when there are 10 seconds left. This is the red sign. And then she will ring the bell at 3 minutes. Presenters must stop talking as soon as they hear the bell, or they will be disqualified. At the end of each presentation, we'll be seeking feedback from the judges, and we'll go in turn to get their views. And then most importantly, what about the prizes? The third place winner will receive $500, the second place $750, and the Supreme Award winner will get a $1,500 prize, plus, there's more, a trip to Brisbane to compete in the Australasian final on October the 11th. We also have a schools prize, a special $250 prize to the presenter that the school pupils have thought was the best, based on their vote. What is your role as the audience? It's to be very supportive and vocal in your appreciation for these finalists. And very importantly, we want to hear from you, but we don't want to hear your cell phones. So if you've got cell phones, please make sure that they are switched off. All right, now we get into the exciting part, the presentations. As I said, we've got 9 finalists presenting today. We had hoped for a 10th. Ruth Cunningham from the Department of Public Health in Wellington was supposed to be here, but unfortunately due to illness, couldn't make it. I will now call upon our first presenter. Andrew Filmer comes to us from the Department of Music. He's an international student from Malaysia who's on a prestigious New Zealand International Doctoral Research Scholarship. He transferred to Otago from Victoria University, so clearly he saw the light. And he started here in March this year, and his supervisor is Associate Professor Anthony Ritchie. Andrew.
Good afternoon. I asked myself recently why I'm doing a PhD. The robes are fantastic, of course, and I love this quest for knowledge. I think what I really enjoy is finding out all these things which I've taken for granted. In the field of music, nothing fits this description better than the tuning of stringed instruments. Violins and violas and cellos have a standard tuning, and we rarely deviate from this standard tuning. It wasn't always this way. There's this wonderful lost art of alternative, crazy, even, just the most unimaginable tunings you can believe. In the 17th century, there was a composer who decided that if he could find the most harmonious tuning of his strings, he could create music that inspired people to be more spiritual. He even tried to do this in a visual way. If you look at the left-hand side of the graphic, you'll see a violin that has its strings crossed in a metaphor for the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. 200 years later, you had a composer who tried to do something completely different. He tried to find the most dissonant, mischievous tuning in order to conjure up the image of a devil fiddler who comes to your house in the middle of the night, playing the violin, and steals your children. I tried to take this creative spark and bring it to the 21st century. I experiment with tunings, I bring it into a lab, I record samples, and I consult an expert in acoustics to find out why things work this way. How do we get new colors of sound? I also consult makers of instruments, including the world's leading innovator in instrument design. And you can see one of his designs on the right-hand side of the slide. What do I do with this? I create new additions and bring it to the concert hall. Why is it significant? If I could put it in one word, it's creativity. I try to provide new channels of creativity for composers. And for performers, it's about understanding the instruments to which they have dedicated their lives. And in doing so, realize that there are new possibilities, literally, at their fingertips. It's also significant because I've helped answer a 100-year-old question that deals with one of Bach's most famous pieces of music. He used an instrument which we do not have in common usage today. But with retuning a common instrument today, I've managed to preserve the kind of sound, the kind of contrast that he wanted in this very famous work. But it has just a personal significance for me as well. At the end of the day, when I finish this and get this lovely gown, I'm going to ask myself, what's the next thing to do? And I know what it is. It's to question the things I take for granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. And now we'll hear from our judges. And first up, Richard.
Yo, Andrew. Hey, I was told that this was like American Idol, and I love that show. So,
I hope you're not Simon Cowell.
and you, no. Look, I've got Randy Jackson quotes in front of me here, and boy, you were the right thing to start this show, because with American Idol, I can say this one was a hot one, a bit pitchy here and there. But I really liked it. Spiritual, visual, mischievous, Jesus and the devil, you had it all, man. So, way to go.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I haven't ever watched American Idol, so I'm probably in the wrong place. No, it really was a great start for the competition. I thought it was great that you could be spontaneous in what you were presenting, with adding in a few jokes. Very engaging, and really seemed to come in a way that people could relate to, and certainly making it very personal for yourself. So thank you. Great start.
I think he is trying to do a Simon. I really do. He read that whole thing from his iPhone, so I'd be concerned about that. I thought you were just a wonderful natural storyteller. It was just fantastic. And you engaged in a way that was very, very connected with the audience. You know, I watched you. You worked across the entire audience. You used humour, you used pace, you were rose and fell. It was just wonderful. So congratulations, and I wish I could do that. You know, it's just terrific. Well done.
Thank you.
So clearly Andrew set a high bar for the competition this afternoon. Our second contestant is Tim Crawford. He comes to us from the Departments of Biochemistry and Botany. He started his PhD in May 2010, so he's been going 2 years and 4 months. His supervisors are Dr. Tina Summerfield and Associate Professor Julian Eaton-Rye. Tim.
Albert Einstein once said that everything is energy. It is at the very core of our collective civilization, and every year our thirst for it grows, even as our resources dwindle and the prices skyrocket. For it is a process so efficient at capturing and storing the limitless energy of the sun that it has changed very little in over 2 billion years. So I asked, what if we could tap into such a process? What if we could somehow capture that endless energy and convert it into forms that we could use? For answers, we turn to the evolutionary pioneers of photosynthesis, the cyanobacteria. When they first came into existence, almost 3 billion years ago, they inhabited a world unrecognizable to us and devoid of oxygen. But they possessed a microscopic innovation that would change all that. Photosystem 2 is a unique, powerful, and intricate molecular engine built of chlorophyll and protein in place of steel and oil, powered by water and sunlight instead of petrol, and the oxygen that it releases as exhaust is now vital to almost all life. But the cyanobacteria have kept some genetic relics from before their machines had filled our atmosphere with oxygen. My research is focused on a set of genes that are switched on from time to time to help them survive when they encounter these stressful conditions once again. The key gene in this set is an alternative form of the core component in photosystem 2, PSBA1. Looking backwards in time, this gene has implications for the evolution of photosynthesis. But in today's aerobic environment, we've found that PSBA1 is still important for the synthesis of chlorophyll and for regulating the levels of photosystem 2. More importantly, we think that these genes are crucial for the function of another enzyme, the hydrogenase, which, when coupled to the solar energy being channeled into photosystem 2, could provide the solution we've been looking for. This tiny protein acts as a safety release valve, taking some of the damaging excess energy from photosynthesis and turning it directly into hydrogen gas. Now, hydrogen is one of the best fuels we have. It burns with a clean flame, and it has 3 times the energy per kilo of gasoline. If we could somehow understand and tap into this process, then hydrogen-producing cyanobacteria, grown in bioreactors like these, could one day make our coal plants and oil rigs obsolete. Cyanobacteria have provided the energy for life on Earth for almost 3 billion years. It is no stretch of the imagination to envisage them powering our cities, vehicles, and industries in a sustainable and completely natural fashion forever. Thank you.
Okay, Tim, let's hear what the judges have to say for that. Janine.
You have quite the support crew here, Tim. Thank you so much for that. You had a hard job with all the technical jargon and so forth, and I actually felt that you connected it well to issues that lay people could understand, so well done with that and made it interesting and engaging. You did seem to have a slightly shaky start, but made a really good recovery,
Yeah.
so well done, that's hard to do. Thank you.
Love the turnout, fantastic. 10 out of 10 for, putting real effort.
Thank you, guys.
Good one. The only thing I would say, well, there are a couple of things I've got to say. What you are doing, I have often likened to standing naked in the octagon. That's how tough it is, so well done. But what I would say is, to relax a little more and to enjoy yourself would have made the journey a wee bit easier. And you did do that slight slip, but you picked it up, and that was well done. That was great recovery. I would have just sort of walked out, I think.
I thought about it.
I think that, this was, in the early part, was aimed at an intelligent person. Well, I'm sub-intelligent, and so I rank myself somewhere about a 12-year-old, and that's where you should be pitching. And I felt that the end of your presentation was what I would have started with, because you can save the world from a pretty bad sort of outcome with what you are doing. And so you sell that at the front, and then you talk about the how. So I would have turned it on its head, but I thought it was just terrific. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey dude, you rock. And remember, I'm the Randy Jackson, so you've got to pitch it for the 6-year-old as well. So everything is energy, and you showed good energy on the stage again through the good and the bad. I love that suit as well, and just sharp and smart and confident, and so well done, mate.
Thanks. Cheers.
Our next presenter is Rebecca Cook. She comes to us from the Department of Human Nutrition. She started her PhD in October 2009, so she's been going at it for 2 years and 11 months. Her supervisors are Dr. Rachel Brown, Associate Professor Rachel Taylor, and Dr. Paula Andrews, and I can see she's got quite the support crew in the back of the theatre.
I'd like to take you on a short stroll down Great King Street. 16 years ago, the only takeaways available in the area were fish and chips. Now on a strip of less than 200 metres, there are 2 fish and chip shops, McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut, Domino's Pizza, Hell's Pizza, and a Coupland's Bakery. Not only that, there are 2 rental outlets where you can pick up a DVD or game to sit and watch or play while you consume your calorie-laden food and drinks. But wait, there's more. You can also pick up some alcoholic beverages from the bottle store, or stop in for a few cold ones at the bar. This is an example of the obesogenic environment at work. The availability of high-energy, palatable, inexpensive food, combined with an abundance of labour-saving and entertainment devices designed to keep us from moving too much, has meant we've essentially evolved from a society of hunter-gatherers to a society of drive-through picker-uppers. Yet, clear away the Big Mac wrappers and discarded gym memberships, and you will find people that have surprisingly managed to remain lean, somehow resistant to the obesogenic environment. You know who I'm talking about. That person who seems to just eat and eat whatever they want and never seems to gain an ounce. Well, most of us struggle with our weight and sometimes feel like we only have to look at a piece of cake to gain 2 kgs. What magic ingredient do the bodies of these obesity-resistant individuals contain? Is there something intrinsic that they're doing or not doing that somehow protects them? And most importantly, can we use this to develop strategies to help those who continually struggle with their weight? I've recruited groups of obesity-resistant and obesity-susceptible individuals and compared a number of characteristics that may impact on obesity risk. Aside from genetics, I've looked at the usual suspects: dietary intake, physical activity, body composition, and metabolic rate. But more uniquely, I've also measured the body's hormonal response to a meal and even their sensitivity to fat in food. I've also developed questionnaires to try and delve a little deeper into what makes our obesity-resistant friends different. Do they spend less time sitting doing nothing? Do they only eat when they're hungry? Are they just not that interested in food and eating? Do they cope better when you give them extra dietary calories? Did their parents refrain from using the starving children in Africa guilt trip to get them to eat everything on their plate? Or are they just plain lucky? I certainly don't have all the answers yet, but for those of you that fall in the susceptible to obesity camp, watch the space. For those of you that appear resistant to obesity, keep doing what you're doing. But please don't complain about how hard it is for you to gain weight when the rest of us can hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Right, we'll start with Michael this time.
Well done, Rebecca. Fantastic. You know, tough. Being out there in front. Not easy. What you have is something that is so germane and so important to every person in this room, in this city, in this country, and indeed in the world. And that we're looking at the first generation ever that will live a shorter lifespan than their parents as a result of obesity. I got slightly lost because I wasn't sure at times where your research was heading. And again, like your colleague earlier, I would have picked up the headline and put it at the top, because what you are offering is a key to a future that is about health, longevity, and a quality of life that's so important. So I think you were fantastic, and again, thank you. Wonderful. You've got... He's got his, Randy's got his iPod there, and he'll do some quotes.
I should say, I'm going through this list randomly. The one I'm up to is I can't touch Simon anymore, but I probably shouldn't say that one. But great, Rebecca. Look, I like it. I like your what you did at the start to draw us into the talk. You took us on a journey through a visual that we could all connect to and imagine ourselves going past those takeout joints. It was a very good way to start.
Past. I'm glad you said past.
Yeah, past. Again, it would have been good to have some take-homes to take home, but that's a reflection on where the research is at.
They're the takeaways.
So keep up the good work. Really impressed. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rebecca. I want to check the rules to see if I can give you extra points for that fantastic banner
yes,
up
please.
the back there. I've never seen a Go Nutrition banner before. I'm not sure that I ever will again. I actually really liked the structure, the way that you did it with the lead-in. I did think at one point it perhaps could have been slightly shorter, but I thought that by the time you got to your research, I was completely engaged in what you were talking about and really wanted to know where you were going with the research.
Same.
And exactly. Well, that was the only other comment I was going to make was you raised so many interesting questions. I'm dying to know some answers. Even some guest answers on your part would have been good for that, anticipation. But thank you. Excellent presentation.
Thanks.
Our next speaker is Himakuma Devan. He comes to us from the School of Physiotherapy. He's an international student from India. He started his PhD only in May this year, so he's only 4 months in. So to get into this competition 4 months in is quite an achievement. His supervisors are Dr. Alan Carman and Associate Professor Lee Hale. Himakuma.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me start my talk by telling you a story of 3 different people in this slide. The one in the extreme bottom right is Oscar Pistorius. He is called the fastest man with no legs on the planet. Next to him is Mark Ingalls. Many of you will be familiar. He's a Kiwi, of course. He is the first ever double amputee to climb the Mount Everest. The lady next to him, many of you won't be familiar. She is Sudha Chandran. She is one of the most acclaimed Bollywood dancers from India. So what is quite common of all the 3? They all are quite famous and they all look like quite active. But that's only the half of the story. On the other side, it is only in this group of people with lower limb amputation have the highest prevalence of low back pain. Low back pain is a global problem. In New Zealand, every second person with low limb amputation suffer from low back pain. This percentage is approximately twice that reported in the general population. Such a high prevalence made us to think, why is it so common and what are the factors that could contribute to this high prevalence? It has been hypothesized walking with an artificial limb could predispose them to asymmetrical loading of low back region and that could result in low back pain. What is this asymmetrical loading? Say for an example, a person with right lower limb amputation walking with an artificial limb could walk or perform movements with some degree of asymmetry, like leaning more towards his left leg. Perhaps it is how they adapt to their artificial limb. But how much of adaptation is good and when it becomes a problem is what we don't know. And that's where my thesis comes in. Whether asymmetrical loading of low back region, is this a potential mechanism for low back pain? To answer this question, our initial literature review revealed that there is no study to investigate the link between asymmetrical loading and low back pain in this population. So, we are planning to further investigate this link by conducting focus group interviews and a national survey. This will be followed by a biomechanics or movement analysis study in a group of low limb amputees with and without low back pain. So, why is it so important? Because our study will be the first to inform a new area of research investigating the mechanics of asymmetrical loading in this population. It will inform the clinicians and researchers to better understand the link between asymmetrical loading and low back pain. If we are able to find a link from my thesis, that will help us to devise prevention strategies to prevent asymmetrical loading in this population. Although low back pain is not a life-threatening problem like a cancer, but just imagine the process of undergoing an amputation itself is a major life-changing event. By preventing the secondary disability following amputation will definitely help them to have a better quality of life. Come back after 2 years. I'll be here to show the results of this link in 2014 3 minutes final. I hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Fantastic. Let's see what our judges have to say about that.
Loved every minute of it, dude. You're a bomb. And certainly prize for best job in the presence of competitor cell phone interruption. But again, really good style, leading us in with stories, people we know, people we don't know. Again, even with the technical language, coming back to what it means, you do a fantastic job for our youngest competitor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You really seem to be enjoying yourself, and that's always very infectious. The audience enjoyed it too. Really good reference to your slides too, I thought, to kind of keep people's attention with that and engaging with what you've got up there. And really nice translation of some of that technical language to give people something else to understand it by before you started using those words. So thank you. Outstanding.
Thanks, Erin.
Wow. Great energy, unbelievable. You reminded me of one of those infomercials, but wait, there's more. I had to work really hard to keep up because you were going to get everything you could into that 3 minutes. So, sometimes a little less can be more.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of information I was really working. The energy there was terrific. And just congratulations. And I really loved the beginning because you framed it in a wonderful context. I knew exactly where you were going, and you took me there, albeit at high speed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Our fifth presenter is Rebecca Van Amber. She comes to us from the Department of Applied Sciences, again with a fan club present here. Rebecca is an international student from the United States. She started her PhD in October 2009, so is approaching 3 years. Her supervisors are Professor Rachel Lang, Associate Professor Cheryl Wilson, and Bronwyn Lowe. Rebecca.
Who here today is wearing socks? As I suspected, it's nearly everyone in the room. We don't know how many people worldwide wear socks, but it is estimated that roughly 4.5 billion people wear shoes. So we can assume that a similar number of people wear socks, as these two garments are inextricably linked. Now, the sock is a humble garment which is critical to human comfort and health, as it provides a barrier between the soft skin of the foot and the relatively more rigid materials of the shoe. This is to prevent the formation of friction blisters, which can be not only painful, but they can impair locomotion and provide an opening for infection. Now, many sock companies today are promoting their products as having unique, high-performance properties and/or features, and these claims can be confusing or even misleading to the consumer. So the aim of my PhD is to determine which common variables affect the properties of socks for sport and outdoor activities. To do this, I'm investigating 3 common fiber types: mid-micron wool, fine wool, and acrylic; 3 yarn types: single, conventional twist, and low twist; and 3 common fabric structures: single jersey, half terry, and terry. And you can see those different structures on the upper right-hand corner of my slide. Now, my research is different from previous studies in that I'm using carefully controlled sock fabrics which were made specifically for me, and this will allow me to directly compare the variables that I'm investigating. Now, I know you're all dying to know, what sort of sock should I buy, and can a superior sock really be developed? Well, so far, my research indicates that the most important factor on the thermal and moisture transfer properties of sock fabrics is the fabric structure. Yes, the fiber does have an effect, but this effect is small, and it is likely masked by the much larger effect of fabric structure. You can see this clearly in the 2 graphs of thermal resistance and water vapor permeability that are behind me on my slide. The fiber types are in blue, the yarn types are in red, and the fabric structures are in green. Clearly, the differences between the different structures are much larger than the differences among the fabric and the yarn types, fiber and yarn types. So what does this mean for you as a consumer? Well, it means that a terry sock is going to be warmer and transmit less water vapor than a half terry or a single jersey sock. So you might want a terry sock for cold and dry conditions like skiing, and you might want that single jersey sock for hot and humid conditions, maybe going on a hike. So to sum it up, my research greatly improves our understanding of sock fabrics, and we now have the knowledge base required to develop sport and outdoors super socks.
Thank you, Rebecca. Let's take it to the judges.
Thank you, Rebecca. I have a son who refuses to wear socks of any kind, so exactly, I'm really interested to know what's the best kind of sock, so I can at least try that out on him. Again, the fan club's fantastic. I was interested to know where the sock thing was going, and now I do know. I thought that your presentation was very clear. You have a very clear voice to listen to, and I enjoyed listening.
Thank you.
I found the foot graphic sufficiently disgusting that I really didn't pay much attention to the graphs underneath, but that's probably my fault and not yours. But overall, I thought it was really a very good, clear presentation, and you did a really nice pitch of the value of your research.
Thank you.
You certainly did. You pay all these people? Look at them. Look at them.
They did that on their own accord.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. One of the things at the beginning you said that there was something like, I think it was 4 billion people wear shoes. Is that right?
That's what's estimated.
Estimated,
Yeah.
and most of those will wear socks. Well, I'm not sure about that because in Asia, a lot of people don't wear socks. And I found that sort of an interesting premise from which to start. But that said, I think what you presented was terrific, and I really, really look forward to the answer because I go through every conceivable type of sock for on the boat, when I'm tramping, in the winter, when I'm not in the winter, hand knitted, not hand knitted, and I get the best merino and it still doesn't keep me. So I really think that what you have has a huge application to everybody in this room and beyond. I thought in your presentation it was good, it was clear, I understood it, and unlike some of the others, because I'm a simple person, not 6, but 12, I understood and comprehended every part of it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
So I've struggled with Randy on this one. I'm like, what? So I think absolutely best sock talk of the day in tights.
I didn't wear my socks because I thought that might be construed as a costume, and so I was like,
No, really good. I like the way you presented and start. I got a little bit lost, and again, it's one of these issues where you've got a lot of variables. You've got 3x3 variables, but you started well. I thought, well, what are we talking about here? Lots of variables. You did bring it back very well at the end in terms of clearly describing what the main findings were. So again, it's one of these things when you give a presentation, you can lose people in the middle sometimes, but as long as you bring them back at the end, that can be very good. So well done.
thank you.
Our sixth presenter is Neil Vallely. He's from the Department of English and Linguistics. He's an international student from Northern Ireland, and he's on a prestigious New Zealand Commonwealth Scholarship. Also a good group of supporters there. He started his PhD relatively recently as well, in March 2012. His supervisors are Professor Evelyn Tribble and Dr. Chef Rogers. Neil.
Thank you. We flick a switch and our surroundings are bathed in light. We go out at night and our streets are lined with light. We go to the theatre and our attention is directed by light. For us, light is everywhere. It is such a fundamental narrator in the story of our daily existence, yet we are rarely conscious of its defining beams. We depend so much on its ubiquity that we dare not contemplate an existence without it. Yet, it hasn't always been this way. In fact, far from it. In the pre-industrial worlds of 16th and 17th century Europe, life often had to be contemplated without light. Imagine a time before electric where light was just a flame. Imagine going to a theatre where there was little contrast between the lighting of the stage and the auditorium. These are just some of the conditions in which the early modern individual experienced light. Elizabethan playwright John Marston values candlelight so highly that he personifies it as a poet. But not just any poet, a rare and skillful poet. When we consider the nighttime that Marston would have experienced, we can see why light would have been worthy of such high praise. For Marston and his contemporaries, light was a precious material that offered an escape from the acute anxiety of night. My thesis argues that the ways in which we experience light, or the ways in which we represent light in language, characterize the ways in which we experience light in the world. Since experiences of light differed so vastly in the 16th and 17th century, then I call for a re-examination of the meanings of light on the early modern stage. We must ask, what was light? What materials were used in artificial lighting? Who had access to these materials? How, when, and where were they used? In what ways did lighting differ between outdoor and indoor theatres, What was daytime like? What was nighttime like? It's through answering these questions that we come to understand the conditions which the early modern individual conceptualized light. So, when Byron states in Shakespeare's Love's Labour's Lost, light seeking light, doth light of light beguile, I argue that we cannot simply interpret these representations of light in relation to the world that we experience. Rather, their meanings are deeply embedded in the conditions of the early modern world. It's through investigating how the early modern individual experienced these conditions that we come to understand Shakespeare's light and the rare firking satirist that is Marston's poet. Thank you.
Show them the light, Neil.
Yeah,
right. Judges.
Well. I've seen the light. Excellent. You are a storyteller, and you posed questions, and they're great questions. And I felt engaged, I felt entertained. I wasn't quite sure where you were taking me, but I was willing to go for the ride. And at the end of the dark tunnel, there was light. I really want the interpretation of firking. I'm not quite sure what that is.
Yeah, I had to be careful with that.
That's right. Well, I was transfixed by it. But they're really wonderful questions because in looking back, we assume it is like it was like it is, and it isn't. So I think that's a wonderful journey, and so thank you for that. And a little bit of Dylan Thomas in there, I thought, and great presentation. Well done.
Thank you.
Dude, this man is in it to win it. So for a scholar of your discipline, the language was immaculate, and it resonated with me because of my background in optics and light, and the fact that you wanted to connect the language to the physical world that was lived. I thought that was great. You used some very good techniques of repetition, the word light, then in the middle imagine and imagine and imagine this, and then repeated questions at the end. You're very talented. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indeed, thank you very much, Neil. I found that enormously relaxing to listen to. In fact, I was sitting here listening, and I thought, I haven't written anything down yet, suddenly. So then I furiously wrote lots of things down. There was a little blip when you came to talk about what your PhD is, and I felt like saying, no, stop, say that again, so I can take it in and listen, because that was really important, and I really wanted to make that connection. But I thought it was an outstanding presentation, beautifully delivered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we've got 2 speakers to go. Our next speaker is Alamanda Fatiosi. She comes to us from the Department of Medicine and the University of Otago, Christchurch. She started her PhD in January 2008, and her thesis is currently being examined. Her supervisors are Professor Vicky Cameron and Associate Professor Richard Troughton. Alamanda. Thank you.
Kia ora. Now, heart disease is one of the biggest killers and is the cause of about 40% of all deaths in New Zealand. But when we look at how heart disease affects different ethnic groups across New Zealand, what we see is that Maori have the highest rates of death from heart disease compared to non-Maori, and that when they die of heart disease, they die on average 10 years younger than non-Maori. Which leads me to the question, why are Māori dying earlier of heart disease? Well, in New Zealand, we have the National Cardiovascular Guidelines, and these guidelines inform doctors when they should start screening for heart disease risk factors, but also how to treat these risk factors in order to improve heart health. So, my project was to compare the levels of heart disease risk factors between 2 very different Māori communities. The first were a rural Māori community up in Wairoa in the North Island, and the second were an urban Māori community in Christchurch City. These were then compared to a non-Māori group, and the non-Māori group were living in Christchurch City, and they were age and gender matched to our urban Māori group. So we recruited approximately 250 participants within each community group, and they were all randomly selected from the electoral roll and aged between 20 to 64 years of age. Now, the findings of my thesis showed that even though 80% of all people within each of these three communities had regularly visited their doctors, there were very different rates of heart disease risk factors between the communities. And the key risk factors are shown in that figure down there on the right-hand side. And in all cases, as you can see, these risk factors were much higher in Māori than non-Māori. So why are Māori dying earlier of heart disease? Well, again, from our research, it is clear that Māori are going to their doctors just as much as non-Māori, but they're not being adequately screened for heart disease risk factors, and that their risk factors are not being managed well. So in order, so I ask again, why are Māori dying earlier? Well, we need to have adequate screening for Māori participants. And so what can the health system do in order to improve heart health in Māori communities? Well, there's no need for new interventions, but simply that doctors screen more for heart disease risk factors, and they effectively treat these heart disease risk factors in order to improve heart health amongst all Māori communities across New Zealand. Thank you.
Thank you, Alamanda. And for anyone to actually complete a PhD during what's happened in Christchurch recently, that's a terrific achievement. So let's take it to our judges.
Yeah, hey Alamanda, and big ups for Christchurch. Woo! Look, that was great. Just nice, simple, compelling question with good information along, and you've done what is a really good thing for a talk. You've got me wanting to come up and talk to you afterwards and ask you 1,000 questions about what we can do and what leads on from that. So you've provided a good beginning, a middle and an end, a little bit shaky towards the end, but you've got me wanting to know more, so that was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, very clear, beautifully paced, that little shaky bit maybe at the end. But I thought the difference perhaps in style was that you I felt drawn in to what you were talking about rather than it being pitched at me. So it was quite a different style and I found it really engaging. So well done. Thank you.
Absolutely agree. You have a wonderfully easy style. You're a natural communicator. You took your time and you walked us through something that was complex, but I never got lost. You engaged so well with people. And as Richard said, or should we say, yo, Richard, I understood everything. And you kept control. And so it was just wonderful. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now we come to our last presenter for the afternoon, and it's Fabuka Finkler. She comes to us from the Department of Tourism. She started her PhD in October last year, so she's been studying at it for about 11 months. Her Otago supervisor is Professor James Hyam, and she has a Spanish supervisor as well, who I will try to pronounce. It's Professor Bienvenido Leon. Fabuka.
I remember going on my first whale watching trip 16 years ago, dressed up in a red survival suit, travelling off the coast of Vancouver Island in a small Zodiac, no other boats around, just us. The sight and the sound of the 14-metre grey whale surfacing beside our small boat shortly after has stayed with me since. Overwhelming experiencing such charismatic giants. 4 years later, I'm standing on a cliff top on nearby San Juan Islands conducting fieldwork for my master's degree on whale watching. In the distance, I noticed the flotilla of boats approaching. Shortly after, I'm counting 25 killer whales and 120 boats. What was going on? We had only just brought whales back from the brink of extinction, and now it looked like we were loving them to death instead. In 2008, 13 million people went whale watching in 119 countries, generating 2.1 billion US dollars. Since the Save the Whale movement of the 70s, whale watching around the globe has developed into a mass ecotourism industry, widely regarded as the antithesis to whaling and equal to conservation. My PhD will challenge that perception. Marketing by operators and non-governmental organizations has played a key role in the growth of whale watching and how it is perceived by the public, promoting close encounters and attaching those to conservation. While this marketing wants us to believe that whale watching is a benign activity, in reality, that is not true. A significant body of research indicates that whale watching can endanger populations of whales and dolphins, mainly due to proximity of boats and associated underwater noise pollution. Yet management and communication of science have largely failed, and there's widespread public naivety about the impacts of whale watching. The solution requires that the public's attitude, including whale watchers, has to be changed, and that they become aware of the need to keep their distance from the whales. We need to manage expectations. My PhD research is investigating a new communication framework based on the concept of a sci-commercial. It's a commercial conveying science, drawing on elements of documentaries and TV advertising. I will produce and test sci-commercials aimed for the consumer to buy into the concept that sustainable whale watching has to be experienced from a safe distance to the whales. Only an informed public can make informed choices. And this sci-commercial framework is a new science advocacy management tool for the whale watching industry that can be used to bridge the gap between scientists, operators, and the public. We have saved the whales once before, and potentially my research can help to save them once again. Thank you.
Good use of the full 3 minutes there. All right, let's go to the judges.
I was going to say I'll discount the words once again since they came after the bell. But fantastic support crew again. In fact, there's just been such great audience participation and engagement in it. It's really fantastic to see. I thought you gave a really compelling and clear communication of the problem that you're addressing, which is obviously a very important one, and one that I've often wondered about myself, so I'm really personally interested in what it is you're going to find. I suspect the challenge for you when it comes to trying to apply your research will be how not to come across as the party pooper, but I hope that you do find a way to do that. Really nice presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great.
Certainly a very, very important subject. Tourism is held up as the great answer to a great many things, and it isn't. It has a very dark side to it. I thought you started with a wonderful story. You engaged the audience. You painted a terrific picture, and I fell in love with the whales, and then you put them back under threat, and I think it was a very, very good device. You gave people a great context in which to understand your research, and your arc from beginning to end was a wonderful arc. So it's a very, very well told 3-minute story, and 10 out of 10 for hitting the bell with only 2 words over. And I absolutely understood everything about it. So well done. Thank you.
Thanks.
Man, the kids this time, I think they want it worse than ever. No, really, really great, Fabuka. Again, the storytelling and one of the things about this competition is that you get the opportunity to use visual cues, but you can only use one slide. And I think everyone's done that very, very well, of use of visuals and not using it as a crutch, because you used some modulation and pitch. You use your voice to signpost the talk. Just as I was getting to the end of your story and thinking, well, when are you going to tell me what the solution is? You say the solution will be, and then when I'm thinking, and what are you going to produce? You told me what you would produce from your work, and you signposted that talk very, very well, bringing me through from the beginning again, through a middle to an end. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I think you'll agree that's been a fantastic set of presentations, and we can see why they're all finalists, so well done everyone. Now, we're going to have a break so that the judges can deliberate. So it'll probably be up to about 10 minutes, so I suggest you stretch your legs and have a chat to your neighbours, and as soon as the judges are back, we'll get into the final prize-giving phase. Okay, we are now going to hear the verdicts from the judges, and I will ask Professor Richard Blakey, our Chief Judge, to come up and say a few words, and then he's going to get our Office Max staff here to come up and present the prizes.
Thank you all. Susan, can you start the clock? I should be timed for 3 minutes for this. I need to say some general comments on the afternoon impressions of the judges. I thought the judges did a very good job. I think the judge... It was an outstanding performance from all three judges, and I think you should give us all a round of applause. Likewise to Rachel, Chris, Andy and the team who have put this together, and Claire, of course, a big round of applause for them as well. Let me tell you, this is hard to do. A PhD is a significant body of work. You have to make a significant contribution to knowledge, and you have enough material, even after 4 months in a PhD, to talk for many, many hours. So distilling that down into a simple message that is deliverable to this kind of audience in 3 minutes is a very significant task, and all of our competitors today did very, very well. They've gone through some preliminary rounds, they're well practiced and well versed, and the skills that you've learned in doing this will serve you well in whatever careers you have. So I'm really pleased to have been involved as a judge this year, and I have to say it was a firkin' hard job deciding who to award the prize to. And that must just about be 3 minutes, is it? Well, thank you to the sponsors as well. Without our sponsors, and of course to our school student judges, this would have been a lesser event, and Office Max, who's here from Office Max, that we can all give a round of applause to our sponsors. Without you, it would have been a lesser event, particularly from the competitor's point of view. I will now invite the school student representative to present the Schools Prize, which is a $250 award, and it is Emily Gordon from Queen's High School, I believe, who's going to come down and present the Student Choice Prize.
Okay, so the winner of the Student Prize is Himakuma Divan.
Well done, thank you very much. Right, and now I'll ask David Bennett, the Key Account Manager from Office Max, to come up and present the Judges' Prize. Third place, which is a $500 study grant from Office Max, goes to Himakuma Divan. Second place, which is a $750 study grant from Office Max, goes to Alamanda Fa'alaose. Go Christchurch. And the Supreme Award winner, which is a $1,500 study grant from Office Max, plus the expenses paid trip to attend the third Australasian 3MT competition at the University of Queensland, that one sponsored by Graduate Research Services, is Andrew Filmer from Music. Thank you, David. So thank you all for attending. I think we've had a very nice afternoon's entertainment, and I think it served a purpose very well. I'd like you to thank the organisers and the contestants again with a final round of applause, please. And I'd just like all the other contestants to come up. We have a certificate and a small gift of appreciation for all of the other contestants who performed extremely well. So thank you all. If you just want to come up here, we'll get those presented to you.
Finally, we do have a small gift for our judges. So they've done a tremendous job. I think they've provided us with entertainment and some very constructive feedback for the contestants as well. It was a really tough job to judge that lot. I think they were all terrific. So big thanks to our judges. I'd also like to invite our audience back to some drinks and nibbles at the postgraduate lounge, the gazebo lounge in the centre. Oh, sorry, in the Union, in the ISB. So please come up to that. All the audience, unfortunately, we can't extend that welcome to our school pupils, but but those of age are welcome to join us for not only for some refreshments there, but to further discussions with our presenters, because I'm sure that sparked our interest in their research, and it'd be terrific to be able to talk to our presenters and learn a little bit more about their research. So I hope you'll join us there. That'll be at 4 o'clock. Finally, we hope to see you again next year. This was a terrific event. We've heard about whales, music, light, heart disease. It's been just incredible. So if you'll just join with me in a final round of applause for our fabulous contestants.